and their mission. The first one is mission, and that's making sure that we're evolving as an organization with our, to fulfill the humanitarian needs that are developing in our community and throughout the country. Money, raising the money that we need in order to be able to fund these operations. People, reinvesting in our staff and our volunteers, making sure that we're giving them what they need to support them as they respond. Team, building One Red Cross. This year, one thing that might have been a little bit not visible to you because we don't do blood collection in the New York City area or on Long Island, is that there's really been an effort to really reintegrate the biomed group into the humanitarian area and the other areas of the organization. And what does that mean? It means that even though we don't collect blood, we want to support our colleagues in the biomed area because there's a lot of important work that they're doing in terms of providing blood to local hospitals, and also being in a position where we can do some more education on how to help find more diverse donors to donate blood towards sickle cell disease, etc. And then reputation is the fifth pillar of the national strategic goals, and that's all about keeping the Red Cross as one of the most trusted organizations in the world, which it is, and making sure that it remains relevant. So I wanted to share those with you. And what are some of the issues ahead? Re-entry from COVID, a lot of questions about what happens as the New York area begins to lift some of the restrictions. What does it mean for our volunteers? What does it mean for our staff with respect to where they work? So those issues are being looked at right now. Making sure we keep our volunteers engaged. We know it's been hard for some of you to be disconnected from us throughout this whole 15-month period. So that's clearly something very important to us. And then, what's going to happen in New York as New York recovers from COVID? What's going to happen to our city? And I think that really factors in. Are there be more people that need our help? Are people leaving New York City? These are all things we have to pay attention to. So we want to continue to hear your voice. We want to continue to help you to grow your skills. We want to make this is an experience for you that's very meaningful and important because you give so much of your time. And somebody's pinging me. Maybe I'm saying something wrong here. No, we're good. And also, I just want to conclude before I turn it over and before I introduce two people and then turn it over to Krista, that what I have learned in my 7.5 months here is that Red Crossers are like no others. And I am so proud and inspired to be part of this organization and to be part of your team. So thank you again for everything you do, and we celebrate you every day. So let me start by introducing two new people to our organization, newish people. They've been here a little bit of a while, and it's really important because I know some of you are really excited to be part of our services to the Armed Forces, International Services area, and we've been without. Yay! Someone's clapping. We've been without staff there for so long, and we're very excited to introduce two people who have joined us who are going to really be carrying the flag, so to speak, and leading that initiative and helping to really re-engage and reignite our volunteer force in efforts that will allow us to deliver our services to our military members and their families. So let me start with Greg Porter. Greg, who joined us, is the SAFIS manager. Greg has a very distinguished career in the military arena and worked for the Department of Defense for a number of years, and then ran his own business for a number of years in the area of creating promotional videos that really were oriented more towards his background in the military. So, Greg, I'm going to ask you to come on camera and say a few words and introduce yourself, and then we'll move on and introduce Lalita. Are you there, Greg? There you are.
Hi. I'm trying. Okay.
You're good.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Greg Porter. Very nice to meet you all. I will say it's been an incredibly fast month that I've been here working at Red Cross, but I'm also very humbled and grateful to be here. The few people who I've been able to meet with the COVID conditions have been incredibly passionate about the programs and about their service to the Red Cross and our service to the veterans and the military members that we serve. And it's really very near and dear to my heart. As Mary said, you know, I spent time in uniform, and then I spent another 25, almost 30 years with the DoD, including a number of years at Walter Reed Medical Center. And so I know what it's like to serve the military, and I know what it's like to wear the uniform. And to me, it's critical the services that we provide. So moving forward, expect to hear from me and Lita. Expect to see us. Because one of the things that we're really trying to do in the short term is to engage the volunteers and create a team environment with SAF moving forward. And so thanks, Mary, for the introduction, and it's great to see all of you, and I hope to see you all in person very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. We're so happy to have you on board and to really reignite our SAF efforts. And the next person who's joined us in SAFIS is Lalita Maharaj. And she is joining us as SAFIS specialist, and we're excited about Lalita because, like many of our staff members, Lalita started as a volunteer and has a great passion for the work of the Red Cross, and she loved it so much that she raised her hand for this position, and we're just so excited to have her on board working alongside Greg. Lalita, why don't you jump on board and camera and tell us a little bit about you. There she is. Okay, Lalita, we don't like.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. As you said, I've been a volunteer for almost 4 years, and I did. You know, my family says I was born a humanitarian, so I've always volunteered in some form or fashion. And when I started volunteering with the Red Cross almost 4 years ago, I fell in love with it. So I knew when the opportunity presented itself to me that what better place, you know, to work for than the organization that I hold so dear to my heart. You know, I'm someone of service, and if I can serve in this capacity and bring awareness to services that as a volunteer I knew very little about, why not? And one of the things I look forward to building with Greg is that bringing awareness to the service to the armed forces and the international services, and educating our staff and volunteers about what we offer, so that as COVID, you know, slowly goes away and we become a more visible force in the community, we will be well represented. So I look forward to meeting you guys in person and working with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lalita, and we're happy to have you here as well. So why don't we move on to the next item on the agenda, and that would be having Krista Coletti talk about some of the things that our fundraising team has accomplished. And, you know, there's an expression that goes, no money, no mission. And so it's so important for us that we have our fundraising team out there bringing in donor dollars so that we can really apply that to the work that you do. They're kind of like the fuel for your engine. So let me turn that over to Krista, and she'll tell you a little bit more.
Thanks, Mary and Lalita and Greg. It was so nice to hear from you. I hope everybody's having a great evening. I love these moments when I can focus on just sharing a few highlights, and I'm really proud to say that there's some great highlights in the fundraising arena to share with you tonight. One is we recently had our regional Heroes for Humanity virtual gala. It was a huge pivot over the 3 in-person galas we typically organize each year. And I hope some of you were able to join us for that. Not only was it an extraordinary program that went off without a hitch, I can tell you that we grossed over $1 million from a virtual event. And I have to bet that there's not too many organizations out there who can boast $1 million plus fundraising event. in a virtual atmosphere. And so we are just extraordinarily proud and more importantly, grateful for all of the donors that stood by our side as we had to do something so very different this year. And so we even had Bon Jovi perform. One of our board members was able to have him record 3 songs for us. And that's how we ended the evening. And my husband, who's attended many fundraising events with me over the years, looked at me and he goes, "It's over already?" He's never said that to me before, trust me. He's usually pinching me saying, "Can we get out of here?" So that was a pleasant surprise that night. On the fundraising front, one of our strategies for this year, given the number of varying priorities that we have, both on kind of the existing needs of the organization and emerging needs with antibody testing, and even with like new renovations with our Greenwich building, where we're trying to build a new blood donation center, we launched what we are calling pre-responder campaigns. And I want to tell you a little bit about where we are. So the New York City chapter launched a $7 million pre-responder campaign. You know what? They launched it last February, right before COVID started, and had to quickly kind of, I'm going to say pivot because that's the nicer word, but I'll tell you in the midst of it, felt like scrambling, felt like scrambled eggs as soon as you release something and you have to shift everything around. But it's the reason why it's successful, the reason that why we've raised almost $4 million through that activity is because we were flexible, because we pivoted, because we made sure that we resonated with our donors out there. And then following that, in the fall, our Metro North board and committee said that they really like to make sure all of the fundraising and donors covered the cost of the new blood donation center that's going to soon open in Greenwich. And since January, when we launched that campaign, we've secured $1,060,000 towards that building renovation in a very quick amount of time. And there's definitely going to be more to come on that, but that's just in the first couple of months what donors have stepped forward and said, "Oh my goodness, we love the fact that you're going to be able to collect blood donations and platelet donations 7 days a week, and we want to make sure that happens as quickly as possible." So that's been really great news as well. And I have one more note to share, and this is a big deal. It seems like a big deal. We are the Red Cross, but we've had 3 individual donors, either a single person or a couple, donate $700,000 or more this year. They have the capacity to do so, and isn't that glorious to have that capacity to make a gift of that magnitude? And we appreciate gifts of all sizes, but my message behind that kind of goes back to a little bit what Mary said at the beginning. And the reason why these people are giving at this level is because of you. It's because they trust your work. It's because they have faith in absolutely everything you're doing to help people out there. And they've chosen this way to say, we want to make sure that you and I have that ability to help alleviate suffering every day. So thank you for all you do, because we're kind of the final track in fundraising. If it isn't for our mission and for the work that you invest, there's no dollars to raise. And I'm a firm believer that success brings success, and your success is what is giving us that messaging and those stories to share with our corporate partners, those individual donors who are making these really big gifts, and each and every single contribution that comes through the door. So thank you so much for everything that you do, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Krista. And if anyone has questions for any of us along the way, just feel free to, put them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to it, before the end of the program. And if we don't get to it, we'll make sure we get an answer to you if it comes in too late. But, I talked a little bit earlier about how we want to be one Red Cross. And any of you who are up in the Metro New York North chapter know that there's a pretty active blood collection process up there, and there are many blood drives mobile blood drives taking place, in many different locations in that area. And it's exciting. When I first got the job at the Red Cross, I knew that I grew up in New York City, and I always knew Red Cross collected blood in New York City. In fact, I used to donate blood all the time. And I was kind of surprised when I took this job, and they said, well, we don't collect in New York City anymore, and we don't really collect on Long Island anymore. And I was kind of, a little bit bummed about that, because, I think that's such a big part of how, we operate as an organization. But I was really excited to see all the activity going on and the enthusiasm going on in Westchester and Rockland counties, and even in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is part of that region, or that chapter. So we thought it would be really helpful to have someone who's a great partner to us, Susan Sommer, who is part of our biomed leadership team, and is a great partner with us, who can talk a little bit about what's going on in blood services. We really need to be all champions for blood collection, because there's just so many good reasons, and we do supply hospitals throughout the New York area. So so important, and COVID certainly has been put a damper in some of the collection that took place, particularly when the beginnings of the pandemic, hit our New York area. So we want to excite you all about what's happening with our biomed partners, and think about ways that we can be supportive and helpful to them. And we will be, launching some mobile blood sites in the New York area, in New York City, as well as other parts of the area. So Susan's going to tell us more about that. Susan, let me turn it over to you. And thanks for coming.
Karen. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and listening to me. I'm passionate about blood services. I'm passionate about everything the Red Cross does, but this one is near and dear to my heart, as I had to receive 8 units of blood when I was in my early 20s because they were going to amputate my leg without some special surgery that I had to be moved to another area and have done. And at the time it was experimental, but without those 8 units of blood, I wouldn't have been able to keep my leg. And I'm now in my 60s and my leg works just great. So thank you to those donors. I guess, is it Nora, are you going to be moving the slides along? Or whoever's moving the slides along could.
Yeah, that's Norma.
Norma, could you hit the next slide, please? Oh, that's okay. So basically today I was asked to talk about volunteer opportunities in the blood services area. Thank you. And that is called Blood Donor Ambassador. And I know that before we stopped collecting in New York City, perhaps a lot of you were blood donor ambassadors. And I'm hoping that that's something that as we're starting to change, we're not going to completely start collecting in the New York City area a lot, but we are trying to do some putting our toes into the water and do a few initiatives. And I'm excited about it because I miss being in New York City. And so I'm going to talk about that in a minute too. But primarily, I'm going to talk about how fun it is to be a blood donor ambassador, which you can sign up for. And then when we have the drives in the New York City area, perhaps you could help out. And if you live in Westchester, Rockland, or Greenwich, you can also sign up and add this to your profile. Next. Right now, we're looking for more blood donor ambassadors. When I put together a mobile blood drive, a lot of times the sponsor of the organization, they provide donors, sometimes they don't. But right now, a lot of the regular places we collect during non-pandemic times, like colleges, schools, businesses, we're not doing them there now. So I've had to turn to a lot of community locations that don't have a sponsor at all. So it's more important than ever to have someone from the Red Cross there to help the donors feel really comfortable and supported. Next. So what do? Basically, it's making the donors feel comfortable. You take temperatures, although they're showing a handheld infrared in that picture. We now have kiosks that people put their face into, and it says temperature normal or not. But it's helping them register, answering any questions they might have, and making sure the canteen has plenty of snacks and beverages, helping them sign up for their next blood drive, teaching them about the donor app. It's a lot of fun stuff. It's really about interacting with people and being social while being very helpful. Of course, as you know, as volunteers, we provide all the training, and so that's pretty much it. Next. So right now we're not actively collecting in New York City, but we have some special events. So they're coming out, and we have a few that are already set up. So June 1st and 3rd, we're going to be at the headquarters. The day in between, June 2nd, we're going to be at Delta Airlines at LaGuardia. That drive is also open to the public. July 8th and 9th and August 5th and 6th, also at the headquarters. I was just informed today that the Mets are going to be doing something with us. They want to have an event at their stadium. So I am going to be on a call about that next week, and I'll hopefully have more to talk about that. And we will need volunteers, so and also donors. And then another big initiative that Mary helped coordinate was to do a big September 11th event, because it is the 20th anniversary, and no one feels it quite like New York City. So we're going to have a blood drive at the headquarters on September 7th. We're now actively looking for a location in Harlem to do on the 8th. So if anybody has any good locations, please let Mary or Desiree know. You can also let me know, but they're the front lines on that. Up in Westchester, we've got a drive scheduled at the Paramount Hudson Valley, which is a large performing arts center, and also the city of White Plains is doing their annual September 11th blood drive. So there are opportunities in the greater New York area. Next. So some other special initiatives going on this year is we've always looked for diverse blood supply, but this year, for the next 3 years, the Red Cross has made it a huge undertaking to really close the gap so that we can provide blood, in particular to people suffering from sickle cell. So anybody can get anyone else's blood, but there's a lot more to just having the types, O, A, B, negative, positive, whatever. So one of the things is there's a lot of different antigens. There could be up to 60 different antigens in anyone's blood. And we've found that over the years, if someone receives blood from someone who's the same race or genetic background as them, although the blood works well from other races and genetic backgrounds, that it actually works a lot better if the person is from your same background. This is particularly important when you have someone suffering from sickle cell disease. With sickle cell, the person who is receiving transfusions needs to have maybe up to 100 pints a year. When they're younger, the sooner they start receiving blood transfusions from someone who's a similar ethnic background as them, it makes it a lot easier as they get older to receive more and more from a lot of different sources. But if they receive, like say, someone who's African American with sickle cell receives blood primarily from Caucasian donors, eventually they develop a lot of different antibodies that make it difficult for them to receive blood from a variety of donors. And it becomes more and more specific until they're really limited in who they can receive blood from. So we're trying to promote a diverse blood supply, not just for sickle cell, although that's the push this time, for these 3 years, but from all different backgrounds, so that we have blood to match people of all ethnic backgrounds so that they can get the best possible treatment. And it's just something we're expanding on. So what I ask you to do is encourage people you know to become donors, no matter what ethnicity they are. When they do donate, it's really important on our questionnaire to respond to what race they are, because that makes it a lot easier when we are trying to get the right blood to the right people. And educational outreach. Although I'm up here in Metro New York North and we don't collect blood in Long Island, I was on a really great call this afternoon with a Red Cross club out in Syosset, I believe, with almost 100 members, high school kids, talking about sickle cell and the initiative, and they were really supportive of it. So I'm just all about communicating the need for people to donate, and especially to try to encourage people of all different ethnicities and races to donate so we can help everyone. Next screen. Oh, I guess I talked about some of this already. So by December 31st this year, we're actually looking to triple the number of African-American donors that we currently have to help eliminate some of this this need that we were talking about. And then my third point down here is what I was telling you, that it makes it a lot easier if someone is from the same race and has the sickle cell trait to donate to people who are of the same ethnicity. Next screen. Okay, so how do you sign up? I am assured that this is a page from Volunteer Connections. And if you go all the way down under registration views, you can add blood donor ambassador and facility screener to your profile. And that way, when something becomes available, you would be able to see it and sign up for one of those shifts. And I think that's it for me. So I really appreciate everything you all do. I can't believe what we do with our volunteers. It's just, every time I work with volunteers, it's great. So thank you so much and have a great evening.
Susan, thank you so very much. And if anyone has any questions regarding Biomed and how we can partner, please, reach out to us, and certainly we'll have Susan respond to anything that is very specific. But we do want to say, thank you, Susan. You're a great partner, and we really find, especially when your team comes down to work, we should know we don't have any permanent employees or staff in Greater New York, and they all come out of Susan's part of the Eastern New York region, and they do such a fantastic job. So we're really so grateful to them for their partnership. So I'm going to introduce someone who needs no introduction, but I wanted to also let you all know that I have another appointment that I have to leave for at 7:45. So what I'm going to do is hand this after Stephen's presentation. Susan Rounds will be coming in to kind of be the introducer of all the rest of the program. If there are any questions that you have specifically for me, and I'm not here, towards the end of the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll make sure that I get back to you over the next day or so with an answer. But I just want to do a smooth transition. I'll still be here for the next half hour, but I just did want to let you know that I'm going to be turning it over to Susan Rounds so I can make a graceful exit at 7:45. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Stephen Wolfe, who is an amazing member of our volunteer services team. And Stephen is the one that many of you know orchestrates some of these amazing nights for our volunteers, recognitions, as well as fun nights and different things. And he does he's so passionate about his role, and that really translates into the way he can bring our volunteers together, even in some of these virtual venues. So Stephen, I'm going to turn it over to you to give some updates, and I will say to everybody, I'll still be here, but feel free to send me any questions if I'm not here at the end of the program. Stephen.
Mary, thank you. Thank you so much. So I am Stephen Wolfe. I am the Senior Engagement Specialist in Volunteer Services, but I don't do it alone. I do have my colleagues, my wonderful, wonderful team, Deborah Gibbons, Andrew Sindel, Danielle Wollenberg, Hannah Tomasek, all of our volunteer teams, and Anthony Incarnato, who I believe is getting married today. And really, this, as Mary said earlier, it's a evening of celebrations. It's a month of celebrations. It's nonstop celebrations. It's all about you. And this particular little segment, when I'll try to be speedy about it, is really about some data, right? Because data tells a story, and that story is that story of you. And right now, what I want to point out is that there are, I think, over 150 people on this meeting, and that is terrific. That means that there is a lot of engagement, and there continues to be engagement. You know, they say that there's a simple equation for engagement, that relationship plus action equals engagement, that the strong relationship that we help construct, that you help construct as well, leads to action, leads to engagement. So how do we measure action? Well, hours. Hours is one way that we measure action, your action, the power of mobilizing our volunteers. So we are at about 180,000 hours so far. The data was pulled in late April, and we are currently actually at 66% of our goal. Now, every year we do have a goal. Every region has a goal. We're not going to be meeting our goal, but that's okay, because that 66% means a lot. It means that a lot of our volunteers are engaged, and that's powerful, right? That is mobilizing the power of everybody. So I just wanted to be able to share this information and want to be transparent with you and give you a little bit of an update. So let's go to the next slide. So engagement, right? So people like engagement specialists, we're knee deep in data, and we swim in data, and we love it because it does tell our story and kind of points us in the right direction. So we're 71% engaged. Recent update, that's actually 73% engaged. That is fantastic, right? So percentage engaged helps us measure the action, helps us understand who is contributing, areas that need improvement, areas that are working well, what we can leverage. And there are 5 engagement indicators. We're not going to go into them tonight, but we can pull reports, and engagement is measured by the engagement of general volunteers. That is people like mental health, health services, home and fire, all those volunteers, together with biomed event-based volunteers and our youth under 18, which are very active. So putting those together, there is a magic formula, and we come up with a percentage engaged. So 71% is fantastic. Once again, you see little hours there also. That's measuring action. Next slide. What's measuring the relationship? Well, the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. It is the volunteer satisfaction survey that is sent to every volunteer on their anniversary date, and it is critically important. And if you've taken it, thank you. Thank you so much for taking it. It is a way, it is the primary way that you can actually let us know what is going on, what's working, what we can change. And every one of the comments, we actually take action on, and there's been a lot of great comments. So 204 volunteers have taken the survey since the beginning of our fiscal year till April 7th. And it measures the relationship, so it measures the willingness of you to tell others that the Red Cross is a great place to volunteer. 62%, almost 63%. Guess what? At the close of last fiscal year, we were at 50. An incredible jump when you think about the relationships being built and the strength of our engagement. That means that that magic, that secret sauce is happening there, and we are being engaged, you know, even during these troubling times or these challenging times. So good stuff there. Next slide. Ever since April, when we pivoted from COVID and all had to switch to the online world, it was a hard left, right? It was hard for a lot of us, and it still continues to be. But we've had 115 events. Now this is measured from our little calendar, regional volunteer engagement opportunities calendar, available in My Shifts. We know there's tons of calendars, wonderful calendars there as well. But this is the calendar that holds events for all volunteers, right? And we've had 115 events, bingos, in partnerships with other departments. We've hosted resiliency workshops, all sorts of good stuff. 800 to 900 unique volunteers attended these events. That's thousands of hours. So it tells a story, and that story is all about celebrating you and saying thank you. Thank you for being engaged. Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for keeping that relationship strong. And most importantly, we send a lot of emails. We do. And thank you for reading all those emails, right? Because that points you to all these new things that are going on. And we really value your time for everything that you do. So really thank you a lot. Next slide. So that calendar is a little empty now, but it'll be filled with stuff soon because we are planning for future months and certainly planning for the next fiscal year. But an event that's coming up that's really important, and it's going to help us celebrate the founding of the American Red Cross on May 21st, 1881, is our Missing Maps event. For you don't know, for some of you who may not know, Missing Maps is where we mobilize the power people who can use their laptop and their mouse. It's not complex at all. There are many people, many places around the globe that are literally missing off the map. And as a result, valuable humanitarian services cannot be delivered. Mappers map these areas, it gets validated, and guess what? Now essential services can be provided for these people. Great event, can really be done by anyone. You don't really need mapping experience. Every event is fun, starts with a little bit of training. Our next one is May 20th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's amazing, it's great. Invite your friends, you can do that. It's usually called a mapathon, but that is our next big event coming up. Next slide. Great. So that is it. And really, from the bottom of my heart, I do want to say thank you for everything you do. It's important. It means a lot. This is the fun stuff, right? Seeing all of you tonight, and we will be in person again. I know that I just want to say a lot of people are thinking about going back to the way it was, but you know, I'd like to kind of put forward that we probably will never go back to the way it was, but we're going to go forward to something that's even better. Right? Even better. And you show that tonight by this incredible engagement and your ability to come forward and be with us. So we will see each other, and when we do, it's going to be all the more sweeter. So now I'm going to hand it over to Susan Rounds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. That's great. And it's really good to see those numbers. Many of you joining us and learning about teams, with all of us learning about teams. It's been a great year. And I'm really, really pleased with the results and happy to be with you here tonight. Before I talk with you and sort of open it up for a moment, I have a question for you all. Let you be thinking about it. I'm going to be talking with you a little bit about what does reentry look. We're learning lessons from our COVID time, but as we consider the re-entry into our facilities and into some in-person work together in the coming months, I'm really trying to think about what do I need to plan for to make you feel like you're safe and valued, because the protection of our workforce is our #1 priority as we deliver our mission. So before I go to that reentry question, we're going to jump ahead for a moment. I'm going to introduce Andrea Grimaldi-Grafer, is our Regional Director of Real Estate, Facilities, and Fleet. And she's going to talk to you tonight about our Emergency Action Plan and a new committee that's forming here at the Red Cross to think again about your safety and security and well-being. So Andrea, I'll let you present, and then I'll go back to my reentry question.
Sure, great. Thanks, Susan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. And I'm just going to talk a little bit quickly about the One Red Cross Emergency Action Plan. This plan is something that was devised through our national headquarters with their security and safety teams to help guide the entire organization, all forms of it, humanitarian services, training services, biomedical services, to in one precise consolidated way to ensure the safety and security of our people, our buildings, and our fleet. So I want to just kind of give you a brief overview of what this plan is, and then also what our Emergency Action Plan and Safety Committee will be taking on and will be focusing on moving forward. So if we could just move to the next slide, please. So the purpose of the One Red Cross Emergency Action Plan is to provide guidance on appropriate immediate response to what we call no-notice emergencies. And this can range from anywhere to a severe winter storm that could be coming our way and affecting either access to our buildings or the ability to leave our buildings, or the safety of navigating our fleet during that time, to hurricanes. You know, it could be natural disasters. It could be something as severe and as scary as an active shooter. It could be also something that we actually focused on quite a bit over the summer months and in the fall, which was the concern of there being protests in and around our buildings or driving our vehicles, why there could be protests going on, and what do you do? So the purpose of this plan is really all about what do you do and how do we coordinate the safety and security while we're faced with these types of emergencies, which can happen, again, no notice at any point in time. And when they happen, that's not really the time for us to say, okay, what should we do or who's going to take control? So this plan really helps identify it, the one who's going to be responsible for guiding us through this time. How are we going to respond? It could be sheltering in place. It could be evacuating. Again, it could be involving our fleet. So you could be in a vehicle and understanding what you need to do while you're in that branded Red Cross vehicle and how to respond and keep yourself safe. So that's a lot of what this plan does. And a lot of times when we think about plans for buildings, we always think about fire drills and where do we go and where's the rally point. But there's a lot of other things that can happen that doesn't always involve leaving the building. There are also things that can happen like COVID, which affects our ability to even use our buildings. And what do we do? And in a way, COVID was really the kind of first real regional no notice emergency that we had. At first, we thought that, you know, we had a couple of weeks and we were going to stay out of buildings. We were going to be socially distanced. And, you know, every time we thought a month would go by, maybe in 2 months we would come back, and we didn't. And we really had to shift and not only learn a different way to operate, but we also had to learn a different way and how to keep our buildings safe and also the people in our building safe, because we still had to have critical lines of service happening, which is responders coming in and being able to get gear. We continue to collect blood throughout this time, and we also continue to provide life-saving training like first aid and CPR. And during that, we had to respond in a certain way. So that's some examples of this. So as I said, again, we want to ensure the safety of our workforce. We want to ensure the safety of our visitors, our donors, anyone coming into our buildings or coming in contact with any Red Cross property or fleet. We want to make sure that we understand who is accountable and responsible for the decisions that we're making. And we also want to ensure we're being safe, that we're mitigating any risks that might come up. So whether it's making sure we don't have tripping hazards, making sure that the sidewalks are clear and they're salted. So all of those things go into this as well. And that's the safety part of it. Norma, next slide, please. So when we're looking at this, we look at what we call the 3 A's: announcing, assessing, and acting when there is an event. So obviously announcing, and depending on what we're dealing with, announcing that there is something that's going on. And that happens in different ways depending on what the emergency is. Assessing what we're dealing with, and then acting. And, you know, this is very similar to all of us who've taken first aid and CPR classes, you know, and when you're taking those first aid classes and we're learning about someone who's passed out and they're lying on the floor, it's always don't just run first. You need to kind of assess and see what's going on, because it could be something, maybe it was a noxious fume that made that person pass out, and you're not going to just jump in. So, you know, announce that there is an emergency, assess what that is, and then acting. We can move on to the next, please. So again, if it's safe to gain access, obviously calling 911 and engaging anyone who can call 911 and giving specific information. This plan does have guidance on different types of disasters or emergencies, excuse me, and what you can do during those emergencies, and then announcing. So communicating that threat, and that's always different for different types of emergencies. And you'll see that in the plan. Obviously, in the case of an active shooter, that looks very different than it does when we're dealing with a fire drill and we're making an announcement over the general fire system. And communicating what those actions are and how we go about. And I'll talk a little bit about who does that and what that role is called. So the One Red Cross Emergency Action Plan, it guides the regional operations team. And the regional operations team, obviously, Susan is our regional chief operations officer. And as regional director of facilities, fleet and real estate, I'm part of that team, along with Gunther Leon, our senior manager of facilities, Vernon De Silva, our chief building engineer, Angel Torres, our maintenance worker, and Ijaz Rashid, who is our fleet manager, are all part of the operations team. But we've also expanded that with the committee that we will have, and that includes having emergency coordinators in our building who come from different lines of services, and we pull those people who spend the most time in those buildings and really who can be the eyes and ears, but also the coordinating force behind guiding everyone to safety. Next slide, please. So the key elements of this are the plan, the Emergency Action Plan and Safety Committee, and this committee will be comprised of the operations team, along with a position that's called the Emergency Coordinator, and Vito Rincello and Cedric Zavarin are two of our emergency coordinators who will be part of our Emergency Action and Safety Planning Committee. We will also have other members of lines of services who will be joining us, but we actively would like to engage volunteers as well, because many of you spend more time in buildings or in vehicles than a lot of our paid staff do. And it's important, again, the eyes and the ears. As you all know, or some of you know, we have a very small operations team, and Gunther does the best that he can to make it out to the buildings, but he can't be in all the buildings at all times. So it's really difficult for us to be able to be guiding everyone all at the same time. So having that cooperation and partnership amongst the staff and volunteers of all the lines of service really helps us. And it also helps to identify what's going on and how we can respond to any safety issues quickly to make sure they don't then create more of an emergency during something that we're dealing with. Each building obviously will have individual building plans. Those will continue to be updated, especially as we look towards reentry and what reentry looks like. It will then give us the opportunity to spend more time on those individual building plans, really talking about, you know, in your basic, if we're dealing with a fire, where rally points are, what do we do, where are the emergency exits and those types of things. So we'll delve into those much more once we're at a point where we're starting to have reentry into those buildings. The other piece of this too is a call tree and an emergency communication plan, which we have tested. This plan resides with Susan. And this is, how do we get information out? Obviously, we can do all the planning we want, but if we don't have a strong communications side of this plan, it's really not going to work. So how do we quickly reach out to all the lines of service? And this includes training services and biomed, because right now they're actually the biggest user of our buildings, letting them know that there is something going on and what needs to be done for their team. So that's part of this and very important. Training and exercises, just like everything else we do in the Red Cross, it is very important that we are trained and we also exercise this plan. So as I said, we've done it with a call tree exercise. We also did a short tabletop drill, which was more around a COVID scenario, but we will be running call tree and tabletop exercises throughout the year, as well as individual building exercises. Again, without practicing, we're not going to know where our flaws are. We're not going to know where our vulnerabilities are. And we won't be able to strengthen those plans as we move over. And then, of course, having after action reviews. Next, please. So that really, in a nutshell, is what our One Red Cross Emergency Action Plan and Safety Plan is. As I said, we will be convening a meeting with the Emergency Action Plan and Safety Committee, a kickoff meeting, to talk more about the plan and really spend some time reviewing it and looking forward as to what our next steps are. So if there's any of you who are interested, and you might even have backgrounds in safety and emergency management, we would really love for you to join us. So certainly reach out to either myself and or Susan. And I have to send a huge virtual hug to you, Ronnie Rigos. Thank you very much. I miss your face. So thank you. But I really appreciate all of your time this evening, and I hope to see some of you join us. Right, Ronnie? You'll join? Thank you so much, Susan. Back to you.
Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate that. Norma, if we could go back to my reentry slide. As we think about being able to see one another again and being able to reenter our buildings, we're a few weeks off, but we're a disaster relief organization and we always plan. So my readiness plan, as I anticipate seeing new guidance coming from national headquarters to us about our COVID environment and how we can re-enter our buildings safely. I also need to take that guidance and make the best plan possible for the buildings across the greater New York region. So each of our facilities, we're thinking about, what do you worry about, or what are you concerned about, or what would you like to know about? As I have these conversations in various settings, I hear about the need for a very strong communication plan. But what are the things, and I'd just like to take 5 minutes, and if you just raise your hand, if you'd like to share with me, I'm just gathering right now things that you want us to think about as we're putting together this reentry plan and communicating it out to you and to our workforce, both our volunteer and our paid workforce. And I just, if you're not comfortable speaking, you can put something in the chat, or you're welcome to email me at susan.rounds@redcross.org. And I don't want to take a big part of tonight's meeting because we still have Dario to speak with us about disaster, which is, we're coming up on hurricane season, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But for reentry, are there things you want to be sure I'm thinking about as we build this plan, or Andrea and I are thinking in operations? With sustainability and many other advantages of remote work in mind, will volunteers be encouraged to continue to work remotely when possible? From Amelia. I believe so, yes. Amelia, I think learning the lessons we've learned in COVID, how do we work remotely? What things can we do remotely that we weren't sure we could do? We didn't think we could do. I think there are lessons to be learned. And yes, as we think about sustainability, we certainly want to blend both the remote and the in-person work. And I'm taking notes. So when I look to my right, your left, I'm just jotting down some notes to be sure that I'm adding this all into the robust conversations we've been having.
Susan?
Yes.
It's Richard Sanchez.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. I wanted to mention something about it's a very nitty-gritty thing right down to the building itself. When we come up from the elevator on the basement to the office, you know, the regular room, the emergency operations center.
Right.
The problem is you have to push a button to exit the elevator area to get into the service area, the emergency operations center. If, God forbid, there's a fire or something, the problem would be that there might be electricity working, but if you, I think you have to enter a code or something has to happen that to get out. And I'd like you to look at that maybe and see what's going on there about everything.
Absolutely, Richard. I will take a look at that and get back to you.
Yep, I just wanted to jump in quickly. Richard, when the alarms go off, all of those are automatically unlocked. It's an emergency fail-safe, so they're unlocked and open so that it can allow for immediate exit.
But if there's smoke in that room itself, there's little tiny space between the elevator.
Yeah, I'll get you the specifics, Richard.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else with re-entry thoughts they want to share?
Susan,
Go ahead.
Susan, how are we going to handle working in a closed environment or an indoor environment, not knowing whether the people we're working with are vaccinated or not?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Peter. We know that getting a vaccine is a very personal decision. It's also a health decision that you make with your healthcare provider. So we are creating plans and we are looking at it as if we don't know the status because that is private information we're not sharing. What I would say to you is I see a future where we continue to wear masks, we continue to social distance, and we continue to have sanitation stations for hand sanitation as well as making sure we're wiping down surfaces frequently. But thank you for thinking about that, and we will put some communication together around that because I have heard that concern as well from many others.
Susan, this is Christoph. Aside from the question of vaccination, are there consideration of negative test for those working in the building?
We have not looked at mandatory testing, but Christoph, we certainly can look into how that would fit in with the Red Cross's guidance and policies. Thank you. Okay. My time is up, and I'm going to turn it over to Dario, who has a presentation, Dario and Raul. And thank you all very much for your thoughts. Please drop me an email or pick up the phone and give me a call when you've got a moment, and I'll try to get back to you quickly, because I am interested in your thoughts and how you would feel safe getting together again. I know many people are eager to do it, but we want to be sure it's in the safest possible way. Dario, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. Just 1 second, Raul. I told Raul to go ahead, but just quickly, I'm actually in the car, so my apologies on that. Again, just want to say a quick thank you to everybody for the support on the different operations we've been working on. We have been very, very busy. We had that Queens job, just so you have an idea. That job is one that we're still working right now. It has included a lot of funds and a lot of people. And again, but I think that the key to that is, as a region, we stepped up, not only DCS, but everybody in the region, different departments, and supported that operation. So I want to thank everybody for their support on that. And then I believe Mary mentioned it before, but I was getting a little bit of bad signal. Just in case she didn't mention it, the preparedness team is #1 in the country in every area. So I want to give them a shout out for the great work. Those of you that do preparedness, we have been leading the country in that area. So thank you very much. And I'll hand it over to Raul to talk about hurricane season. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Dario, and good evening, everybody. So I'm here to talk to you about, give you a quick snippet about hurricane season. I know it's, we're towards the end of the meeting, and what's keeping you guys between, the next episode of whatever your favorite portion is on Netflix. So anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started. So 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. Next slide, Norma. All right, so as you guys know, hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin starts from June 1st to November 30th. Some of you have heard that they may be starting it earlier, as soon as May 15th. So that is just some recent chatter that has come up about that, and that kind of came about because of the early start that we had last year and previous years. But whether it starts May 15th or June 1st, we're here, we're there, and this is the time that we need to start getting ourselves ready. As you guys can see from the chart, the peak of it starts in August and it peaks in September, and starts decreasing starting in October. So that's where we have the most activity. All right, next slide, Norm. All right, and not to give you any form of PTSD or anything, but this is just a graph of what last year looked like. And this is just a slide that shows our side of the country. So this is just the hurricanes that came in the Northeast. Remember, there was a lot more activity also going on across the country. But from what you can see, there was at least 2 Cat 3s. I can count about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so hurricanes and a bunch of storms and depressions. So again, last year was a busy one. Next slide. All right. So this one was supposed to be a little bit of action slide, but it didn't. There it is. So one of the things that's new for 2021 is that the National Hurricane Center is going to change models, right? So the previous model was one that followed sort of the 1991 and 2010 guidance, and that would have been 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major ones. But they're switching over to this other one, which is the 1991 to 2020 model, and that one has 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So as you can see, that is there's an increase there in what they call an average. And as you guys can see in that huge banner, that's just an average season. Next slide. All right. So early prediction is for 17 or 18, depending on who's the predicting entity. So the university, the Colorado State University has 17, while the weather company, the folks at the Weather Channel have 18, and that's comparing it to what the model says, which is 14. The official forecast from NOAA, from National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center, has not come out yet. That's going to be coming out in later May. But as you guys can start seeing a little bit of consensus around what some of these prediction entities have. So we're going to be in it for a little bit of another heavy season. Next slide. So again, 2021 anti-hurricane season predicted to be more active than usual. And as I said before, official outlook is going to be out later on in May. All right, so here are the names for the 2021 season. So I'm not going to read all of them, but they're out, and that's what they look like. And folks, I apologize for the noise, but as you can see, the Bronx is it's a little bit of a loud place. So next slide. All right. So how can I prepare for hurricane season? So really, the quick and dirty of it is, keep yourself informed in aware situation. Develop and update your list of assessment tools. So those are the tools that you go to see, okay, where's this hurricane? Is it going to be developed into something? Is it going to turn into a major, or is it going to stay? Or what are your tools for getting informed? And then be personally ready, right? It's no use if you are getting, if you're learning about hurricanes and you're doing your thing as a Red Cross volunteer, but yet you and your family and your pets are not ready. All right, so next slide. All right, so with keeping yourself informed and aware of situation, so again, always check the official outlets, the national, the NOAA website or local OEM webpage, as well as your news outlets, social media, and then any internal Red Cross bulletins that may come from within the region or from National Red Cross. And then look for available training. There's a lot of great training there that's free. So be on the lookout for it and take advantage of it. So National Hurricane Center has some, and then there's a great article from Cleveland University that I can post in the chat later on. That could keep us further informed. And then, most importantly, is learn from history, from previous storms, and from hindsight's 2020. All right. Next slide. Okay, so here's again just another visual on one of the tools that can help you prepare. As you can see, here is the know your zones. This is the New York City evacuation zones. So you can always find out where any areas that you may live or any areas that are important to you, family, friends, whatever. You can always learn where in the evac zone they fall, and it also explains what each evac zone corresponds to. All right, next slide. Okay. So assessment tools. So again, part of keeping yourself informed is also having your little toolkit, your go-to toolbox, and that could be something as simple as a safe websites online. So for me, the ones that I use are obviously the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center. And then within that, you have the river gauges, which tell you what the measuring of the volume of the rivers are, and if they're near flooding, if they're at major or critical flooding. So again, all of these, when I visit them, just kind of paints a holistic picture of what the situation looks like. All right, next slide. Okay, and then continuing with the assessment tools. So all of the things like the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale that tells you again what type of damage wind can do and what the velocity associated with Cat 1 through 5 hurricane, and then also the Beaufort scale, which tells you again not to the strength of a hurricane, but it tells you at what point it might be unsafe to do outside activities, or at what point you might start seeing trees or branches swinging. All right, next slide. All right. All right. And I know a lot of the times we can be overwhelmed by some of these weather products that we see in out there. So when you hear terms like slash, maximum maximums, and all of that, it can be sometimes overwhelming. However, even a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. So don't get yourself overwhelmed. It is a lot when, even for myself, someone like myself, I've been doing this for about 6 years now. It's still a learning venture every day. So, all right, next. All right. And then next, how can I prepare for hurricane season? So talking about being ready personally is determine your own risk. What type of risk is associated with the area that you live in? I.e., am I in the flood zone? Is my family or loved ones living in flood zones and whatnot? Develop an evacuation plan. Assemble disaster supplies. Get insurance checkups. It's important always to check in with your insurance and see what kind of protection they offer, or what kind of protection you may need to add on to your policy and whatnot. Then followed by strengthening your home. Obviously, is any areas of weakness or anything that you can do to strengthen it. Was always helpful. And think about your neighbors, and not only your neighbors, but also your pets as well. Next slide. All right, so keep in mind Hurricane Preparedness Week is May 9th through the 15th, and this is a link to the National Weather Service's Preparedness Week material, and I can post that in the chat later on. Next slide. Okay. Other things to keep in mind is that Pacific hurricane season also will be starting in mid-May, and wildfire season is not too far along, not too far away. So it's always a good time, and it's never too late to get your GAP in order, your group activity position in order, and contemplating if you're able to deploy and assist our ARC neighbors in the West. If they're impacted, which is we know is probably a 99% certainty. So next slide. All right, that is it for me. Again, it was very brief, just to kind of give you pop that from the back of your head to the front of your head. If there are any questions, I'll take them. But if not, thank you very much.
Hey, Raul, just want to add on the May 15th piece. What's going to happen is the National Hurricane Center will start reporting as of May 15, but will not. This year we will not move the the June 1st timeline to May 15, but they will start reporting as if it was moved. So just keep that in mind. So it looks like next year they may move it to May 15, but we are going to get a lot of products coming out as of May 15 for hurricanes.
Absolutely. Yep, that's exactly correct.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you, Dario. I want to thank everybody for the questions in the chat. I'm adding them to things that our reentry committee will consider. I'm going to open it now for the last 3 or 4 minutes. I'll stay on. The meeting itself is officially over, but if you have questions that you'd like to go over with me, and before we close, we have some submitted questions. So Dario, I think this one's for you. Do we expect virtual response to continue post-pandemic?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. Can you hear me? Just want to confirm I did the right thing.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, what we are doing is we've asked the response units or response-related units, ECC, response for both the community chapters in New York City and the recovery team in New York City, to start to plan a return to a hybrid model. In other words, both virtually and in person, for whenever it happens, right? So we're not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. We just want to start being ready for a hybrid model. I think, as Susan mentioned before, there are things that we're learning, right? So if we learn those things and we can continue to do some of those things, we'll do it. And there are things that we have requirements that will require us to go back in. So, for example, in New York City, because of the HPD contract, there are things that we're going to have to go back to do. That will require us to get back in the field in some areas. But yes, we are going to welcome, short answer, we are going to welcome a blended environment. Again, safety, number one, clients right there tied in with the safety, and then, efficiency is something we want to look into. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dario. Second question, as a volunteer, I have found it easier to participate in meetings such as mass care calls and events such as All Hands remotely, as opposed to traveling to the building for a meeting. Are there options to offer remote engagement once the office is open? Absolutely. We are embracing our proficiency in remote options for meetings and participation remotely. We are looking into what that technology could look like for those who choose to be in the building or who happen to be working during meeting, and so that everyone can participate. So we absolutely will be keeping these remote options as a blended opportunity. Question 3, it appears that volunteerism is declining significantly in all areas. And since Red Cross is largely volunteer-based organization, how do we see future mitigation of this issue? We already have seen incidences where it was near impossible to get volunteers to assist. Stephen, is that a question you're comfortable talking about strategy for engaging new volunteers, and or would you like me to defer to Jose and we'll get an answer out to the group afterwards?
Susan, actually, I can kind of begin to answer, but I know Jose will be more than happy to fill in the kind of missing pieces. But volunteerism is actually increasing throughout the Red Cross network. It is actually going up, and we have a lovely team to thank for that, including the recruitment team that's bringing in the volunteers in the region. However, as COVID has evolved, our volunteers have evolved. As society has changed, we have also changed too. So volunteers across the board in not only the Red Cross, but everywhere else, are favoring more short-term opportunities. And we've noticed that also, whether it's because of the pandemic or because of other things, that really life is now changing. So life really kind of is the call to action. So it may seem when there's something happens and we do call outs, not many people respond, but keep in mind that those people may want to participate, but may not be able to at that point in time. So it is evolving, I would say, volunteerism, but throughout the Red Cross network, in terms of applications coming in, it is increasing. So that's a good thing. But, there's a lot of other parts to that question as well. And it all goes back to how the relationship is built with the volunteer to keep that strong connection together so that they can say, hey, I'm there, or you know what, I'm not this time, but I can be there next time. So that's my answer for now, but I'm sure Jose can fill in the anything else that needs to be in that question. But it's a great question. It's a really good observation too.
Thank you, Stephen. That is a great start to an answer. There is a question in the chat before I go on with the submitted questions. Dario, aside from weather-related events, do we expect mitigation-related missions in the next few weeks and months?
So right now we will continue to do any missions as long as we're able to do it without affecting our typical operations. And the good news is now primarily approved by the local RE, meaning Mary. So we do expect it if the opportunities show up. So as long as, again, our three primary missions that we are currently focused on do not get affected.
Thank you. The next submitted question. Recruitment for technical groups, DST, public affairs, photography, and others. Although technical skills and experience may be required, what can be done to train and help recruit members from within other gaps? How can volunteers be encouraged rather than discouraged from learning more about the behind-the-scenes work areas? I'm going to start, and then I think I'm going to let Stephen jump in. But what I would encourage you to do is, if you're interested in learning more about another department or another area, look on Volunteer Connection for the positions and the openings that exist to see where you might like to be part of that and learn more about it. And just have a conversation with the hiring manager, the volunteer manager that's seeking your input or seeking expertise. And I'm going to pivot over to Stephen and say, are there other ways that volunteers can look into other kinds of work that we might be looking to have done? Stephen, do you have other things to add?
I'm so sorry, I got pulled away. Can you repeat that, Susan?
Okay, so other than looking on Volunteer Connection to have a conversation about open positions where there might be another opportunity for you to volunteer in a different area, this person is asking, how can volunteers be encouraged rather than discouraged from learning about the behind the scenes work areas?
Sure, that is a great question. And there are I have to point to many different things actually. The meetings that we hold, and also our recruitment team. How can volunteers be encouraged rather than discouraged from learning about? There is the recruitment team does hold information sessions for a variety of other open positions. And coming in the next fiscal year, we'll also be hosting more sessions for volunteers to come and express themselves, learn more about behind the scenes work. As a matter of fact, we've got for June and July and August some lunch and learns planned that will be able to shed light on behind the scenes work. We've had these before too, and whenever we partnered with different departments, they've always had like a call to action for volunteers. I know we had one recently with, I think, Joe and SAF, and he did a shout out to get some extra caseworkers. So there's always chances for volunteers to learn more about other lines of service.
Thank you, Stephen. And Andrew has posted in the chat for those of you who are interested, please email recruitmentgny@redcross.org to discuss additional roles. They're happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you. The next question, thank you for having mental health staff and volunteers follow up with volunteers after the early days of COVID. However, why aren't volunteers followed up now? RE basic needs for food, water, sanitary wipes. I know several Red Cross volunteers who are unable to leave their homes and are elderly and living alone. More could have been done to assure volunteers had basic needs covered. I'm going to say to the person who submitted this, or any of you out there, if you know of someone with a need, please reach out to your volunteer manager, reach out to one of us on the regional leadership team. we would love to work with you and work with that volunteer to make sure that their needs are taken care of. We're all a big family here at the Red Cross, and we don't want anyone to be sitting alone, not feeling like we're worried about them or that we care, and we can try to connect them to community resources or find a way to mitigate what they're feeling. But we will take under advisement that there's other outreach that could be done. Also in the chat, there was a question about parking. I'm missing that, but I'll go on. Can the process of transitioning from intern to volunteer be explained? Stephen, you are up on that one.
Yes, great. So our spring cycle just finished, and we sent an email to all of the interns several times saying the transition there. It's really easy. You just kind of complete a form. That way we get to know who does transition. However, you can, if you want to work with your volunteer manager and volunteer form, you can do that and arrange that, and it's very simple. You just kind of transition over. We change the profile a little bit, and you can start that way. If you would like to explore a different line of service, that is where either I come in or our recruitment team can come in and explain different roles for you, but it is easy, and we welcome you to stay as a volunteer. And as a matter of fact, if you are maybe going back to school or you're going someplace else in the country, we can transfer your profile anywhere in the country, and we can connect you with the specialists there. That way you can go and volunteer wherever you are, but it's an easy process. And I'm also going to put my email in the chat so you can send me, anybody can send me an email.
Thank you. Diana writes, I am new to the state and do not know the parking situations. Is there a way to let people like myself know the parking situation? Diana, I'm not sure which of our facilities where you would need to be parking. So it's probably easiest to speak with your volunteer manager who's going to be familiar with the parking situation on whichever of our facilities you'd be reporting to, or where you might be coming for work or volunteering. Another question, when will we be able to get together again, even if it's outdoors? Can we do socially distanced outdoor events at this time? Unfortunately not. The COVID guidelines and the compendium that we are working under from the organization have not changed. I am expecting new guidance in a few weeks, but it's not immediately on the horizon. I don't know what that's going to look like. I expect that because we follow the CDC's cautions and guidelines, that we will find some relaxing of those processes. But right now, other than for direct mission essential work, the Red Cross is not hosting gatherings or having gatherings of volunteers or staff, just out of an overabundance of caution. So even outdoors, we are not taking that chance yet. I do think there will come a time when we'll relax that as more vaccines are administered and the CDC relaxes its guidelines. We can expect that our organization will follow suit and do the same. But more to come on that, and we will certainly be robust in our communication of that. The last question, what is the latest on working in the office post-COVID restrictions? Same thing. We don't know. We're right now in a red stage, and we are not in the offices other than for essential work, and that's go in, get the work done, and go and get out. If we can do it remotely, we're doing it remotely. As soon as we can relax those standards, I'll be happy to communicate those. I'm one of the first people that would like to see a few of my colleagues and my volunteers face to face again as well. Next slide. Without volunteers, the Red Cross could not provide programs, services to thousands of Americans in time of need. True fact. When positions become available, why is it that many volunteers who are doing the work that is being required in vacant roles are passed over to individuals who have no Red Cross experience? So I think there's a couple of answers to that. I think we do post things and we want internal we call them internal posting. We want other volunteers to be aware, but we also want to bring new people in. Try to remember the excitement you had when you became a new volunteer and got to be part of delivering this amazing mission. I know how I felt when I became a volunteer 32 years ago. And I'm sorry, that's 38 years ago. I'm aging myself now, but I was so excited to be part of something so amazing. And I think we want to share that with as many new volunteers as we can. And it's not so much about passing over, but by working together to bring new individuals into the organization. But certainly we want current volunteers, if they have an interest in another area, talk with the recruitment team because they are happy to consider you for any of the vacant roles that are being worked on. And in what ways are we able to maintain volunteer engagement, especially in this pandemic? I think Stephen outlined for us hundreds of opportunities to get together that have happened this last year. Stephen, I know that you're telling us we're going to have more in the coming year, but maybe you just want to do another plug, if you will, for the type of engagement that we can expect coming from volunteer services, as well as the teams. Every individual department is doing engagement through training, through lunch and learns, through chats, through team meetings. But Stephen, what are some of the other engagement opportunities?
Sure. So Volunteer Services is getting ready to do shout outs to different departments to get the lunch and learns in place. That's also going to benefit our summer interns who are going to be coming in and staying with us for 10 weeks during the summer. But these events are open to all volunteers, and they're going to be great peeks into different departments. In addition, we're planning some engagement workshops. In the new fiscal year, there's going to be a little bit more guidance on engagement and other things. We're also going to plan hours workshops. We're going to make sure that all of our volunteers know hours, what they mean, how to enter them, and kind of clear up any clarity. Keep in mind that even though we've done them before, we have a brand new bunch of volunteers that may need that particular guidance. We'll have more fun events. We'll have bingos. We'll have other things that we're going to lay down. So there's going to be a host of different virtual engagement opportunities, and we will do our best to plan them appropriately so everyone can attend. And where appropriate, we'll record them. We've done that in the past too. I think it was Mary or Susan who mentioned that we launched our Pride branch. Andrew Siddell and I are the co-chairs. We were so lucky these past couple of months to have fantastic training that really, I've got to say, was so high quality, and we're hoping to bring that back again and do more. And Volunteer Services does partner with many of the departments, but other departments themselves, like I know Disaster Services, I think has an amazing social hour that they do on Fridays. And to Richard's point, we'll work. We'll see how we can consolidate calendars, but there will be a consistent amount. Once again, we do send emails. We send a lot, but that's really the way that you can get to know everything that is going on. But there will be more engagement and more chances. In terms of, I think, what Susan just said about touching the mission in the field, that is to come, as it comes. And Susan just gave you some more information. But we will be working hard to plan for more engagement and to support you virtually, at least for the moment. And then eventually, hopefully, we'll be doing it in person.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you, everybody, for such an amazing meeting. Thanks for staying with us all this extra time, but I think the questions were valuable, and we really do want to be responsive. If we didn't answer your question fully, shoot us an email. You can get me at susan.rounds@redcross.org. Talk to your volunteer manager and reach out to us. We'd be happy to answer your questions and move forward.
And Susan, I think Mary wants a photo. So
yes, Stephen, the photo.
Stop the presentation and everybody turn your cameras on. Turn those cameras on.
Turn your cameras on and let's see what we get.
Let me put it in a mode where we can get a few more people in the frame. Come on, turn your cameras on. Don't be shy.
We want to do one of those amazing, cool backgrounds.
We do. So let's do large gallery mode. Here we go. I do see a lot of circle. There we go. Okay, let it clear up. And here we're gonna do. We're gonna strike a pose. Strike a pose. 1, 2, 3. Y'all smile. Smile.
Smile. Cheese. My daughter's photobombing.
Okay, we're taking that one, and now we're going to the next one. All right, everybody, strike a pose and smile.
There you go.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Have a great evening, all. It's been wonderful to talk with you. I can't wait to see you in person.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, I don't know what happened here. That's frozen.
Richard, I see your hand is still up. Did you still have a question? I think he signed off.